Hey everyone, welcome back to the Barbell Medicine YouTube channel or iTunes or wherever you're getting this podcast from. This is a question and answer session that Tom Campitelli and I did while we were in Melbourne, Australia this past February. We've got all sorts of information here like who should and shouldn't do power cleans.
Well, so if so, I'm already on the verge of saying let's just not do power cleans in general unless you've done them before. 2, you want to be a coach and therefore you need to do power cleans.
Should I do CrossFit with my barbell training?
I think most people start doing CrossFit because it's super hard, right? It makes you feel like I got a great workout.
Yeah.
And because it's so hard, it's likely to get you in shape, whatever that means to a person, faster. You're gonna be leaner, you're gonna be capable and all this other stuff. I would argue that is not the case due to the programming.
So stay tuned. We got about an hour plus of some high quality information for you guys. And thanks again for tuning in. All right, first question, who shouldn't do power cleans?
So check this out. So here's the general management for power cleans, right? So step 1, are you over the age of 40? Yes. Well, so if so, I'm already on the verge of saying let's just not do power cleans in general unless you've done them before. 2, you want to be a coach and therefore you need to do power cleans. Or 3, somehow it's the only thing that makes your training complete. Right? So if that's no, then I think, we probably won't do power cleans. Let's say you answered yes to one of them for the sake of this argument. So then you have to learn how to do power cleans, and you have a terrible rack position. You can expose yourself to the rack position as often as possible so that you become more comfortable in it. Alternatively, if that doesn't work, so you've spent a week or 2 weeks where you've just hammered yourself into the rack position, you're like, this is really just not going to work, you learn how to power snatch. And then you learn the entire teaching process for teaching the power clean or the power snatch is very similar. But again, if you're not going to be a coach, if you haven't done them before, and if it doesn't make your life complete, I would do rows instead. Now I know specifically in the book or some doctrine that's been handed down, so don't do rows in place of power cleans. That's what every starting strength coach does. And I will go on the record by saying it's fine to do it. And interestingly, if you asked the 123 starting strength coaches, like I did, if you ask them which movement they would remove from the starting strength novice linear progression, can you guess what it is? Power clean. I like the power cleans. They're fun, especially doing a CrossFit gym. You really trip people out. You load up a lot of weight, and they're like, "What are you doing at deadlifts?" Some casual power cleans.
All right, next question. What should I do with long-standing, non-specific low back pain?
So, specifically with you, because it was actually getting worse as we went along, you want to figure out what it is that's irritating it. Like if you are lifting too much too soon, if your back is upset with you, allow it to give it as much work as you can without further upsetting it. Like you went from squatting to deadlifting, and then as we deadlifted, it got significantly worse. So we backed you down to a weight where it actually wasn't worse. If you find that squatting really heavy bothers it, then maybe you need a little less weight. And further, if you have acutely pissed something off, you may need to allow it to calm down for between 1 to 3 days and actually not beat on it, and then just start providing an appropriate amount of work. If you need to, NSAIDs can help with pain, and I won't. You could use the whole take a bunch of ibuprofen for 3 or 4 days just to knock it down, and then train on it as much as you can. As somebody who has injured their back several times, at least 2 or 3 of them during lifting, not training on it is not a good idea, but at the same time, you don't want to continually piss it off and turn like a minor tweak into like a chronic ache.
Yeah. Also, we have a lot of stuff on back pain and management thereof that I would tell you to read. It's on the Barbell Medicine website and our YouTube channel, podcast. So, just general management. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the general thing for injuries, do as much as you can that doesn't set you back. You know. So my general rule of thumb is, if something is becoming more and more painful throughout the set, right, versus staying the same or improving, then either the range of motion or the intensity is too high for the given injury. So the management would be to either find, then if it's the range of motion, you know, then you switch to a different variation, or if it's the intensity, you take the weight down. But the idea is to progress back to normal. Yeah. All right.
Next question. When will you guys be coming back to Australia?
Yeah, so I probably would come back in a year. I mean, the thing is, every time we come here, it's always a crapshoot, right? So like this time, we came just under the Barbell Medicine sort of a thing, and I was like, I'm not sure how this is going to work. You know, it's kind of nervous because it's like, who the hell's heard of me? You know, and it worked out pretty well. And I think as we come back more and more often, we develop more and more relationships. People know about us, and then we can kind of figure out, all right, so here's the market. Here's what people want to do. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to come back and do a full-on barbell medicine seminar where you get to learn about a theory. You know, a lot of the theory. There's more lifting involved. Baraki's here, Tom's here, Leah's here. Alan Thrall comes with us, and it's a big party. You know, I mean, not like in a weird way, but in a fun way. So yeah, I would imagine sometime in the next year we'll come back through Australia. Maybe not New Zealand. New Zealand is cool. I just feel the market is much smaller there, you know?
Yeah, there's 4 million people in New Zealand.
Oh, is that true?
I think so.
No offense to New Zealanders, you guys are great. You have great beaches. You talk to the camera, yeah. These Maori people are gonna be like, oh, this guy, and then can't show my face anywhere. People on the internet are sensitive. I said in a thread somewhere, anything associated with Mark Bell is bro science, which I do. I believe that in my core. Not like my core, but like my heart. And some guy on Twitter was like, man, you're the dumbest person I've ever seen. Mark Bell's a genius. And I was like, oh, wow, look, if that's where we're starting this, I feel like we're just too far apart.
All right, so the next question is, how should I incorporate barbell training into CrossFit?
Any WOD.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this for a second.
I know where you're going with this too.
Sure, good. Why are you doing CrossFit?
I don't know. It scares me, I think. So I like going in and like not knowing how far I can go. And it's like a mental thing as well. Like I want to be able to push myself, I think. When I look at it and I'm like, fuck, that looks impossible. You know what I mean? And
Sure,
I'm like,
sure.
let me just give it a shot.
Sure.
And sometimes I surprise myself.
Yeah, so right. So I feel like I think that experience is not unique to just CrossFit. Now let me pry a little further. So let's say that you got really good at dealing with those demons.
Yeah.
But you gained 15 pounds and it was half muscle, half body fat, and you're plus 2 sizes.
Yeah.
And is that a cool trade-off?
No.
What? You just told me the whole reason you're doing CrossFit is because you want to get over the fears of stuff.
Yeah.
Seems like that's probably not the full answer. I think most people start doing CrossFit because, it's super hard, right? It makes you feel like I got a great workout.
Yeah.
And because it's so hard, it's likely to get you in shape, whatever that means to a person, faster. You're going to be leaner, you're going to be capable, and all this other stuff. I would argue that is not the case due to the programming, right? So things that are going to get you leaner include calorie restriction, which CrossFit does not. I guess you could be fat shamed enough if you go into CrossFit and everyone else is super lean, right? And you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to, not eat as much because I don't want to be around all these people.
I know.
Yeah, so that would work, but there's no that's not intrinsic to CrossFit. You can do that with any exercise, right? And then if you're like, oh, well, it's going to make me strong, and I'm like, well, no, not necessarily. If the strength programming isn't on point. Oh, it's going to make me more conditioned. Well, no, not necessarily if it isn't programmed correct. So what I'm getting at is that There are no unique qualities that CrossFit develops better than any, like, a traditional strength and conditioning program, other than going into a group setting and exercising with friends, right? And I think that's useful, but you don't have to do CrossFit to do that.
Yeah, I see
You know?
what you're saying. No, I totally do. Yeah.
So anyway, if your boyfriend does CrossFit, whatever, like, that's fine. Like, you can, like, you guys don't have to break up or anything. You just tell them, just tell them that, you know, you want to get strong and you have reason to believe that you are genetically predestined to be very strong if you develop the strength.
Yeah.
So if I would predict your progress a year from now, you'll be squatting well over 100 for reps. You'll be power cleaning 70 to 80 for reps, and, you know, deadlifting 150s, 160s, no problem. And your body composition will be whatever you decide it to be.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think CrossFit's going to put you in a better place than that.
Thanks.
Let's repeat the question.
Sure. So the question is about coaching people, like how to fit this in an hour, or some sort of personal training sort of situation. All right. So you have a few options. Option number one is group people up, small groups, where you actually can have a 2-hour session. You know, and so you have like 3 or 4 people, and they're all sharing the rack, and they're squatting, and pressing, and deadlifting, and you just it's 90 minutes to 2 hours. That's fine because you get adequately compensated enough for your time at that point. And also, they're no individual is paying you for 2 hours of your time. They all get to share the cost. So that's option one. Option two is you focus on 2 lifts each session, which is totally doable in 2 hours. Is it optimal? Well, no, not necessarily, but it's better than focusing on what everybody else at the commercial gym is focusing on.
You mean 1 hour, correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So 2 lifts in 1 hour.
Yeah, okay, you said 2 lifts in 2 hours.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so you could squat and press in an hour, you know, and that's fine. At some point, you'll be able to trust them and say, yeah, now I want you to deadlift. Or now I want you to, you know. But so how I did it when I was in a commercial gym setting where everything is booked on an hour, right? So it'd squat and press, and the next time they come in, they deadlift bench, and then they'd squat and press. That was kind of the way I ran them through a modified LP. Unfortunately, in this day and age, people while they will recognize people who are actual subject matter experts in this stuff, and in general, that's a good sales point for them, you may need to play the game a little bit in order to build your clientele. What I mean by that is people want to feel like, oh my God, I just got a really hard workout in, or, oh, like my core is killing me. Whatever. Look, man, you're trying to get clients, right? So like a leader.
I knew too much.
Well, so I'm saying, no, a leader with no followers is just a guy taking a walk, right? So you could be the greatest coach in the world and you have no clients. You're not a coach. You're just a dude who like wants to train people but can't. So you may need to do something like have them push a prowler or do some high intensity interval sprints on a recumbent bike or something, just to be like, oh, and now we're going to do this high intensity interval training, and you can say this is very good for fat loss. And you're not lying to them, it's true, even if you would rather them just strength train. Okay? If you teach them how to brace effectively, right, and you have them like practice that a few times at the end of the session or whatever, they're gonna have DOMs in their abs the next day and be like, oh my gosh, I just got this great core workout, and you're like, I really just want you to squat, but you know. But look, again, are you going to work in a commercial gym?
No, I run my small business.
Yeah, it's just you have to get clients, right? Like that's the thing. And so I think that until the general public's intelligence and knowledge of legitimate strength conditioning gets, you know, much, much higher, right? At which point CrossFit crumbles. Well, look, nobody's going to pay $200 a month for people who can't coach movement, can't program movement, and to hang out with 19 other people, you know, going crazy. I mean, really, it's not going to happen. Tom's like, he thinks of the day that this may happen. So in order for you to get clients, I think that at some point you're going to have to do that, right? So that would be my general first workout would be teach somebody how to squat, have them squat up to a heavy set of 5. Right, and usually that would take long enough where I couldn't have them do 3 sets of 5, so I'd have them do 2 sets of 5, and all the warm-ups in general would make them sore. Their legs are sore, okay, good thing. Then I have them do presses, same sort of deal, right, and then their arms are kind of sore because they've never pressed before, and then I would teach them how to brace, and their abs are sore, and then I put them on a prowler, sled, or a bike for a couple sprints so that, you know, they're out of breath. And it's like, okay, legs, arms, abs are all sore. was laid out at the end a little bit, even though it didn't really, wreck them for the next few days, yeah, it's fine. That's the way I did it.
Something else you can do is intersperse their warm-ups with their work sets.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that works too.
like while they're squatting their work sets, you can be warming them up for the press. That will help to keep sessions shorter too.
Can you get stronger and lose weight at the same time?
I mean, my experience with my client panel, right? Not my patient panel, but my client panel, has been that losing weight and getting stronger is not terribly difficult to do. Programming just has to be appropriate. So if you take two twins, previously never trained before, one twin is okay with gaining a bunch of body weight, one twin absolutely refuses to gain body weight or will gain it much more slowly over time. Well, the one who's going to gain more weight, his novice linear progression is going to be more robust and last longer, and he'll be stronger at the end, okay? And then when he starts his intermediate program from a stronger standpoint, as long as his programming is appropriate, he'll probably end up getting stronger than his twin brother who won't gain any weight. But the twin brother who won't gain weight will still get stronger. It'll just be less. So anything that compromises optimal training, recovery, will compromise outcomes. So that includes a job where you work a ton or has a lot of stress, a poor interpersonal relationships where you don't have a good support structure. You can't eat enough due to whatever, thing, any sort of medical process. So any one of those things will all compromise your training outcomes, but you can still get stronger. It's just slower, takes longer, and you need more input to get a smaller output. Robin, at the ripe old age of 73, can still get stronger, even if she doesn't gain an ounce of body weight, okay? Still get stronger. Now, she's gonna need more training to get less of a response than if she did this when she was 43. That's just, yeah, it is what it is. So the real question is, if you have somebody who won't gain weight, do you just yell at them until they gain weight?
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing you can do until you just realize, hey, not everybody has the same goals, has the same value system, and that's fine too. I just want everybody training, right? If you don't want to be a world-class power lifter or, strength person, that's fine. More room for me, Like if we keep attracting all these
Look, if you don't weigh more than 308, are you really trying?
Well, that's the thing. So I get a lot of questions like, how much should I weigh? Right? I'll be doing an Instagram live or whatever, and people are like, oh, how much should I weigh? I'm 6'3" or whatever. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do in your life? And they're like, I want to be as strong as possible. I'm like, no, you don't. Because otherwise you would have already been taking steps to get there. So yeah, you're 6'3", how strong should you be, or what should you weigh, and what should you do to get as strong as possible? Well, you should probably weigh well over 300 pounds. You probably need to move into your parents' basement so you don't have to work, so you can just, live for free. Yeah, exactly. Right, you live under the gym, right, and you get to train all day. Also, you should start doing drugs like now, so that way, Well, I'm serious, so it's just, people don't have the same value systems, and I think everything needs to be qualified. And that's okay. I just want everybody training.
All right, so this particular question is about overtraining and what we thought about it.
Genuine overtraining is extremely rare.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen it in strength sports. And I think this is important. It's important to discuss two things. Well, three things. One, those birds. Not sure what's up with them.
I don't even know if they're inside. I don't know if they're inside or just really close to on the outside there.
If you're listening or watching at home, we don't have bird sound effect going. This is these are real birds. So there's a difference between stress and fatigue, right? And I'll just make this definition here. So stress is anything that compromises your ability to perform. Okay? So your performance level is here. This is your baseline performance. Okay? When you apply a stress to that, it goes down. Right? Now, if it is a useful stress in that it improves whatever outcome that you're trying to attain, like strength, like hypertrophy, like conditioning, whatever it is, then that is useful fatigue. If I light you on fire, that is a lot of stress, but it does not contribute to any outcome other than to, make you a little darker. Yeah, exactly, right. So I find that most cases of quote-unquote overtraining is just an application of terribly programmed stress, right? That's inappropriate for the goal that's trying to be obtained, right? So it's somebody doing, a ton of hypertrophy work, whatever, when their goal is like pure strength, increase. There's time and a place for hypertrophy work, certainly, but if you're going in and you're doing just straight up bodybuilding stuff for 6 to 8 weeks, and there's no element of like progressive strength overload, and you're wondering, well, why didn't my strength get better? It's like, well, the specificity of adaptation to imposed demand, the SAID principle, would predict that, in fact, your strength would not have improved from doing very general or non-specific work, So I've seen overtraining in endurance athletes, and the definition or the telltale sign is they keep doing more and more training, and they're not getting better at all. In fact, they're getting worse, and there's sleep disruptions, there's bona fide hormonal disruptions, but that's like ultra marathon distance endurance stuff. So I don't see it in strength. I don't see it in the strength things. If you train too much and it's appropriate type of stress, it's producing useful fatigue, you just get too strong,
Most people will not allow themselves to become overtrained. You have to be like borderline manic, because you will have lots of markers. You will feel very badly.
Well, right. The central governor model of fatigue, which is effectively your brain will shut down force production at the level of the muscle or decrease it to a point where you cannot take yourself to a dangerous place, will shut you down far before you are at risk of really hurting yourself. So the overtraining thing, I don't buy it. No, well, I'm just saying, I think people will apply a bunch of non-specific stress and be unhappy with their outcomes and call it overtraining because they felt like they were working really hard. And I don't doubt that you were working really hard, you just didn't know what you were doing. We've all been there,
The next question is, how do you know when you're no longer a novice?
You're doing the novice linear progression, but you're not a novice. That's it. Look, man, so check this out. How do you know if you're not a novice? Ready?
Not making progress from such and such.
And you just told me that's what's happening. The answer is simple. You expect that your novice linear progression to go longer, right? Oh, I see. Okay, so you're suggesting that your form is decreasing to a point where you don't feel comfortable going up any further, even though you still think you can do novice LP, to a weight that's not making you any stronger, but your form is better. So my counter argument to this is that you are attempting to work at intensities that are too high for you to maintain relatively good form, right, and therefore make progress with relatively good form, and you are no longer able to progress with the current programming. So it's just a different way of failing the novice linear progression. My point is that you can probably be better served by switching to a different programming model where the weights were a little bit less intense, although the productive fatigue was more. So I think the answer is the same. Yeah, and so a question would be, when is it useful to grind out the novice linear progression, right? Really, if the form is breaking down frequently and significantly, is it useful to grind that out? And I think the answer to that is no, almost never, because what is the payoff? Payoff is it lasts a little while longer, but you're exposing yourself to bad movement mechanics, right? And at that limit, you're likely inducing more fatigue than benefit. It doesn't mean that you should never make modifications to the novice linear progression to make it go a little further, but I think if form is the issue and it keeps being the issue, then you have to switch. Yeah. That'd kind of be my management at that point. So the cool thing is now you're an intermediate. Now we get to do some cool stuff. Right? Isn't it going to be more fun on this side?
If only that were true.
Yeah, I think it's more fun. Actually, it's not true. So I never ran a novice linear progression. I didn't. I spent a year running through what people would call a novice LP, but I just did it inefficiently. I was doing the lifts once per week, adding weight each time, and doing a bunch of other silly stuff. And I got reasonably strong. So at the end of the first year, I squatted 227.5 kilos. Yeah, I benched 165 kilos for a double, and I had deadlifted 250. That was the end of my first year. It took me 6 years to pass those numbers.
Okay.
Because I did a lot of stupid stuff and I still didn't know how to train. I think one of the best parts about Novice LP is it teaches you how to train and how to think about your training and organize it and make it a priority. That's one of many positive aspects of Novice LP. That said, sometimes it's time to move on.
Next question is thoughts on the sumo deadlift.
I don't have the same level of vitriol for the sumo deadlift as some people do.
Define vitriol.
I don't have any of my trainees train sumo that pull conventionally. I think there are some people for whom a sumo deadlift may work a little better, especially like if someone cannot get their back flat and they're experiencing back irritation, and going to like a slightly wider stance enables them to do that and relieves their back irritation. Lovely. I don't know that there's a ton of carryover from sumo to conventional aside from just like sort of general volume, you know, similar movements do influence one another, right?
Yeah.
I would choose another deadlift variant over sumo if someone's training conventionally. And there are a number of sumo deadlifters that incorporate some conventional training into their deadlift, because the sumo deadlift winds up being a little bit more like a squat in that you're more upright. So like actually having to be leaned over a little bit more in a conventional can train the back in ways that's helpful for sumo. Not my first choice, but at the same time, like there are times where I could see it potentially being useful.
Yeah, that's pretty much. It's a non-specific deadlift variation for someone who pulls conventional. I think you can use it in where somebody cannot train their conventional deadlift productively, consistently over time, but they can do it with sumo. Do sumo deadlifts. Better not deadlifting, right? In certain GPP blocks, so general physical preparedness for a intermediate to advanced level lifter, sometimes I'll have them not deadlift conventional and have them only sumo for a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, as sort of a washout period, where if they previously had gotten almost desensitized to doing some volume on the regular deadlift, now they do sumo, it's completely different. It's like a washout period. So when they go back to conventional, they're like, they get a robust effect from training it. I don't think it does anything unique. Yeah, it's just, to me, honestly, it's the same to me as a close grip bench and a regular bench, right? People are like, close grip bench press will fry your triceps. I'm like, nah, it's just more benching. The closer grip.
What was the question?
About being the pros and cons of being a strength coach. Would I recommend? All right, we should put this one on the internet ASAP. All right, so you live here in Melbourne. There are no starting strength coaches in Melbourne. You would have a very large market of people who are clearly interested in this stuff, right? And you will get business from being a starting strength coach, period. The skills that you have to obtain in order to be a starting strength coach would put you in rarefied air as far as how to actually coach the lifts themselves. And I think the cost is nominal, mainly because getting other certifications require a substantial cost anyway. You know, it may be cheaper to do something in Australia, but that would not improve your skill set. So if I had reason to believe that you could, within the next year, go to a starting strength seminar, pass, and then be a starting strength coach, I would recommend doing that. If it's going to take you longer or a significant amount of resources in either lost wages or you have to take the seminar 2 or 3 times in order to pass, then I think that becomes a little more murky, you know. But right now the market is thick. You would be the only show in town, and you'd make a killing. There's nobody in this town who can do what we just did, and you would be that person. And I know that you're like, oh, this guy sounds cocky. It's like, look, I want there to be, right? I want to be somebody in Brisbane that I can refer you to, but there's not. 99.9% of all people in the fitness industry are trash. Not like trashy people, but it's like trash. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know the scope of their limitations. These are the people who tell you that carbs are bad or fruit will kill you or weird stuff, and you're just like, all right, stop. And we haven't even talked about coaching movement yet. I mean, okay, show of hands. How many people have heard that weight should be in your heels when you squat at some point from somebody in the fit? I mean, everybody. Like, this is like total. This is, if you work in a commercial gym, that's the line, right? But it's vehemently wrong. And that's, you've just eliminated 90% of all trainers across the world. And now we're left with the 9.9% who say other weird stuff. Like, we should do this functional movement screen, right? All right, so it's another 5% that's fallen off. So you would put yourself in rarefied air. The market is big. You could do well with it. It does not mean that there are not other useful things to learn afterwards. The programming intermediate stuff, that's having starting strength certification doesn't qualify you to do that. But the process of going through the seminar, taking the test, passing it, equips you for learning that stuff. Yeah. So anyway, that's my take. I would do it if it's not gonna take you over a year to do it, and 3 seminars or something like that, something weird. There's a guy, isn't there a guy here who tried to pass it?
No comment.
Oh yeah, twice, failed.
No comment.
It's not an easy thing to pass, but gosh, you would kill it, man. If you're familiar enough with the forum so that when you are asked a question, you can answer it, I think you're reasonably ready. When I went through, it was funny because Rip would be given a lecture and then ask a question. I already knew the answer because I was familiar enough with his material. The people who go and fail have not coached enough people on this method or have not read all the stuff that's out there. And you're like, well, of course you didn't pass. You're not familiar enough with the material.
All right, so the next question is, what are the health benefits of strength training?
Well, so we're in the process of writing, we submitted our first revision of this article, basically strength training and the results that it has on outcomes in healthcare. So stuff like heart attack, what does it do for blood pressure, stroke, depression, obesity, arthritis, stuff like that. It would be very difficult for me to summarize all of the findings in a way that wasn't either too general to be meaningful or too specific to be concise. So what I will tell you is that making yourself stronger would prevent you from suffering any early mortality at this point in your life. Further, it would make your life more meaningful and your quality of life would improve. You're able to do things more independently. You're less likely to fall and break a hip. You're less likely to have something tragic happen to you because you're just deconditioned, sarcopenic, you've lost a bunch of muscle, or otherwise frail. I mean, we look at data in people over the age of 65 and we wonder why people with grade 1 obesity and people who are overweight end up living longer than those with normal BMIs. And it's because they're less frail. And one of the reasons, if you're very sick, you end up losing weight and, kind of moving down the BMI. So I don't want you to be frail and I don't want you to be weak. I want you to be strong and have vigor and be able to do whatever you want to make those years meaningful, right? If you live to 95, but it's terrible and you're bedbound and you can't do anything on your own, what's the point, right? Yeah, so I'd like you to be strong and independent, and I also selfishly like to see you deadlift 80 kilos because that would be cool. So for those at home, I have this video so I can put it on here. So this woman, Robin, 73 years of age, never touched the barbell before, comes in today, works up to a very easy, very good looking 45 kilos for a set of 5 deadlift. And that's pretty cool. And to the extent that you can modify how the rest of your life is going to go, strength training is going to help. Does that mean you shouldn't do any cardio, like briskly walking around the block or dragging a sled like they have here? Well, I think you should do that too. And that being said, if you have 3 hours a week because of your other commitments that you can dedicate towards physical activity, I would spend 90% of them under a barbell. 90% of that time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. I just can't tell you relative risk ratio of your, it would just be a lot of numbers.
I also think it's important to point out that there is a correlation between strength and longevity. But it's not like if you start lifting weights, you will live longer. We couldn't tell you that.
Right. Yeah, that'd be a good selling point. I would open up a gym.
Yep.
But yeah, CrossFit longevity. Oh, it's probably already taken.
Yeah, I think it is.
But I'm just saying, you just lift this thing.
CrossFit duodenum.
Yeah. CrossFit DVT. There's a CrossFit aorta in Germany.
Is there really?
Yeah. Which, I don't know. All right.
CrossFit AAA.
Yeah. All right.
All right, the next question is, I'm at the end of LP and need to lose weight. Can I get stronger, and what should I do?
You still have the ability to get stronger. You're just, the return on your investment from time in the gym is just going to be less than it would be if you were going to gain weight. Now, there are other reasons to lose weight, I think the benefits of losing weight for a guy like you probably outweigh the, slowed strength gains. And so I would switch to intermediate programming. I would start incorporating conditioning 1 day per week, and I would eat in a calorie deficit such that your weight gradually trends down, and rinse, lather, or lather, rinse, repeat on that. The bridge is something that we kind of put out there for that. I think you'd be a perfect candidate for something like that. It's got a day of conditioning in there, and it switches to 2 days of conditioning towards the end as you build up tolerance to that. And you kind of just would keep running that until you either weren't responding by getting any stronger, or you didn't need to lose any more weight, and then you could switch to something else. That makes sense? Yeah, that's kind of the same process. So people are always like, oh, how many times should I run the bridge? I'm like, well, keep running until it stops working. That's the LP, right? How long should you run the LP? Keep going until it stops working. Once you've identified that you're no longer responding to the stress level of fatigue that's been generated, then you have to do something else. And so I think I agree with your management so far. If you said, hey, man, I want to start losing weight today, I'd be like, that's fine. Your LP might last 1 week less. And it's a risk, it's a cost-benefit thing. How old are you?
43.
43. Yeah. At some point, for some people, in certain contexts, losing weight is more important than getting stronger as fast as possible. Well, I would still say that getting stronger in general is possible even while you're losing weight. It's just going to be slower.
Next question is, can you gain muscle while you're in a calorie deficit?
Well, yes, and yes. So, can you gain skeletal muscle tissue while you're in a calorie deficit? Yes, until you get later on down the line where it's just
early intermediate, definitely.
Yeah, probably an early intermediate who's got a significant amount of weight to lose. Later on, you're not building as much muscle in response to training anyway, right? Because you've already built a bunch of muscle compared to your genetic cap. And then 2, you're just responding less to training. And you're in calorie deficit. But early on, certainly. And then, so what you see is people's waist circumference goes down, their body fat goes down, lean body mass goes up, and these are generally either novice or early intermediate type folks. Later on, not so much, particularly advanced lifters, even on drugs. So there's that. Can you get stronger without gaining muscle mass? Yes. Probably, it depends on who you read and your overall take on the science. Somewhere between 60 to 80% of strength gains have to do with muscle cross-sectional area improvements. Neurological stuff happens. You also get better at the exercise. And performance, it depends on what you're tracking for strength, right? A 1 RM squat, 1 rep max squat is your objective sort of outcome. You can get better at performing that without necessarily getting stronger. Does that kind of make sense? You have some sort of strength developed that you were unable to display, and so there's other factors that go into that. Yeah, and then just generating the ability to perform. So if let's say your 5 rep max, we used this last time when we were in New Zealand. If your 5 rep max is 560 pounds or 255 kilos, right? And that equates to about a 1 rep max of 628. Now, on the day that you did 560 for a set of, a 560 for a set of 4 would be about a 628 pound 1 rep max. On the day that you did the 560 for 4, you may not have actually been able to do 628 for a single because you have not practiced enough at doing singles. It's a skill in and of itself. You also may not have been motivated to the correct level to do one. There's a handful of things, right? So your performance on certain objective outcomes that you may be tracking can improve even without an improvement in also cross-sectional area, neuromuscular efficiency, stuff like that. And then finally, neuromuscular efficiency can get better over time.
More so at the novice, more so as a novice.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Not necessarily.
yeah, not necessarily. Especially as you keep getting better at the lift. You know, I mean, think about the difference in your technique. How long have you been lifting now?
Like 2.5 years.
Yeah. So think about year one, 3 months in, and now, after that, you're significantly better at doing the lifts now.
Yes.
Even if you're like hard on yourself and you're like, well, but I'm not perfect. Well, listen, man. 10 years from now, you're still not going to be perfect. Okay? You'll just be 10 years older.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right.
All right, next question is, what is the difference between the bridge 1.0 versus 2.0?
Yeah, so the difference, there's a little more volume in Bridge 2.0. The exercise selection is a little bit different. Yeah, we just got, basically how this works, I have a handful of beta testers that I send programs to, and I try to match them, I pair match them. I'm like, oh, you guys are about the same in my mind, which is obviously not necessarily exact, but, and then I just see how they do. There's an A-B program, A, B, and I do that enough times to feel like I'm doing something scientific where it's like, people in general respond better to a certain type of programming. Like I said, we've had thousands of data points go through barbell medicine in our programming, and I feel reasonably confident that what we're putting out there is generally good. 10 years from now, our programs will be way better than they are now, and so I'm sorry to everyone right now. We're going to be better in the future because of my shortcomings now.
Next question is, what are your thoughts on using RPE during training?
So, yeah, and I think, Tom and I have been fleshing this out on this whole trip. I think, so when you go into a workout, you have to have quantitative data and quantitative goals. And what I mean by that is just numbers, right? So if, let's say, one day I squatted 200 for a set of 5 and 230 for a single, like that was, let's just say, all right? Let's just say that was a workout. So that's quantitative data, right?
So everyone knows what RPE is.
Oh, yeah, I will. I'm going to get there. So let's just say that was a workout week 1. Week 2, going in, I know that I would like to do more than that 230 and 200. So maybe in my mind, I have 232 and a half and 202 and a half. Like I'm like, oh, I just would like to go up 2.5 kilos, okay? So that's my quantitative goal, numbers. The first workout, I also believe you need a qualitative data point. Now that could be bar speed measured in meters per second, could be in RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion, basically tells you how hard the thing was, right? So if that single on that at 230 on week 1 felt like I could have done it for a triple, like 3 reps, I would rate it at RPE 8, all right? Now the following week, I'm pretty confident that if I load 232 and a half, it's gonna go for a repetition, right? But if it's much harder than it was the week before, okay, did I actually get stronger? Well, no, I just think that I did a harder rep. You see what I'm saying? If I rated it as a 9, for instance, on the second week, even though it was 2.5 kilos heavier, I think I'm the same strength as I was the first week. Yeah. So basically I use the qualitative and quantitative data together to say how fast am I getting stronger and also predict my training loads. So if while warming up, something that should have felt like a RPE 7 feels like a RPE 8, I'm like, okay, I need to take some off my...
So for you, RPE 8 means I could do 2 more.
Yeah, I could do a triple with it.
Yeah.
Like 3 total. Yeah, 2 more reps. I don't think it's terribly difficult. I think that there's fuzz, right? And what's most interesting is, let's say that there's a really explosive person, right? They're very athletic. Their RPE 9, like they have 1 rep left, may look like an RPE 7 to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so fast. You could add 30 kilos to this, right? And then they do, and it doesn't even move, right? And so for me to tell somebody else what RPE that was without knowing them for a long period of time is inappropriate. It doesn't mean I can't give them like brackets. Like, yeah, that looked really fast. I think that's a little lighter. Well, everybody uses it. Everybody uses RPE even if they don't have the RPE scale. Tom, when you got a person who comes in and you're coaching them and you're like, wow, these warm-ups look terrible, you're going to back a little bit of weight off. You might collect more data on their warm-up sets, say, hey, let's do another one at this other weight just to find out.
In fact, I may have even done that here. I mean, when we're looking at people going around the room, people always tell us kind of what they're going to do, and sometimes
quantitative.
yeah, sometimes I'll, think, okay, and then as I'm watching their warm-ups, if they are grinding on some of their warm-ups, it's obvious they're not going to be able to handle the weight that they want to, so you back them off. And when you think about even how somebody starts a novice linear progression, how do you determine what the first weight that you do is? You are looking for where the bar starts to slow down, when the person's starting to work a little bit harder. So even though that's not getting a number assigned to it, that is like some sort of judgment of perceived exertion.
Yeah. So the idea, we use RPE to make sure that the stress that's being applied in a workout produces useful fatigue. So the paradigm that heavier is always better, well, I think is an overstatement, because heavier is not always better. Better is better. If a heavier weight applies a bunch of stress but doesn't produce as much useful fatigue, it's less useful. If I can get a better result from less weight because it's the more appropriate stressor, then clearly that's a better use. And so I think having the quantitative, these are the planned numbers for the day, right? And then qualitative, this is how hard the thing felt, and if someone is practiced in that, I think that's how you have to train. I mean, that's how everyone in this room, besides Robin, has gone in and said, wow, this feels really bad. And your initial inclination is, all right, maybe I should adjust my workout. And ideally, you do another few sets to either confirm or deny your suspicions. Well, seriously, another few sets, right? You're like, oh, maybe it was just, it's fine. And anyway, so I think RPE can be super useful. I think using bar speed can be super useful. And I think ignoring those two things ignores much of the experience of training. Like, the feelings that you experience during training are probably a significant contributor to how much stress you're getting from the workout and what you're ultimately going to do going forward, right? If you start dreading your squat workouts, you have anxiety and you're like, oh no. And so that's the thing. That's an issue you have to take into consideration. So.
All right, this next question has to do with in-person coaching, online coaching, and how you can tell if a coach is good or not.
Yeah, I guess it depends, if you have somebody who can't coach the lifts in person.
How would you know?
Yeah.
This is a tough question.
I can see it, right? If I'm there,
Yeah.
I can watch them coach somebody and I'm like, bad. Yeah, I think, so probably for form checks, stuff like that, you want somebody who's familiar with the starting strength model.
That's just it, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're familiar with it and can coach it, or some derivation of it,
Which means online.
well, there may be a guy or gal in Perth who knows this stuff. I don't know. I doubt it. You want to know something? All right, hold on. So this kid's jacked right here, right? He's got a broad shoulders, nice chin on him. You put him and I in a commercial gym. We both have shirts that say trainer. Who's better? Nobody knows, right? You would know after paying a session,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the only way you find out, unless somebody comes pre-vetted. Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. I don't know. I don't have any contacts in Perth, so that's tough. I think, if you wanted some suggestions, you go to a powerlifting gym and ask, hey, you guys doing any coaching? But it's risky.
No, I know what would happen. And that's, of course we do.
Yeah, and then you're going to do box squats, you're going to look up, you're going to, sumo deadlift, because how else do you deadlift? And God love these people. Without them, if everyone was like us, we wouldn't have a business. I'm serious. Look, if everyone could coach very, very well, we wouldn't be here.
Yes. And so online,
Yeah, online can be super useful. So two options online coaching. Not two options, like there's plenty of options, people who can coach you well, all right? I find that the more experienced your online coach is, better that's going to be. Just because they've seen more of the stuff and have figured out ways to best deal with that. They have more tools in their toolbox, right? So that's thing one. Thing two, you want somebody who's going to give you the appropriate amount of feedback but not overwhelm you. For instance, I don't want to give you feedback on all 3 of your lifts all 3 days of your training if you're doing the novice linear progression. Why? That's overwhelming. What are you going to go do to the gym? You have to print out this, long scroll and say, well, then he said I do this and then do this. No, I want to take your squat and I want to work on that first, right? And once that's I feel like that's repeatable, acceptable, and you can go train that way, I might get spot checks on it just to say, yep, still looks good, right? Or just look at the video and say, that's fine. Then I'd move to a different
Is
lift.
that feedback cycle actually effective?
Where's that? What do you mean?
Send your video, send me feedback.
Yep.
I try and incorporate that. Send you a new video.
Yeah,
It
it's just
actually works.
yeah, it's just instead of doing it live in person, we do it session to session.
Yep.
It's better than not getting feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Unless
how
you're getting
many-
bad feedback.
How many people in here, like after a great deal of cueing, started to feel something different when they were lifting? And like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so you've got the problem of the delay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't touch you, which sometimes I'd like to do for coaching, and then also sometimes the filming itself is a barrier. Like, oh man, I really wish I could see this from a different angle. But yeah, instead of doing real time feedback, like lift to lift, it's session to session.
So it's just as effective. It just takes longer.
My experience has been that in most cases it's equally as effective or marginally less effective, but not. There are some things where I'm like, I mean, honestly, I have online clients right now that I've been working with for years that I would almost at that point pay them to go see a coach in person because I cannot fix it. And so somebody would say, well, just fire. You can't do it, It's unethical of you to take their money if you can't fix their technique. And I'm like, well, we're trying. It's better than nothing. And if they weren't paying me to do this, they'd pay somebody else to do it, and they would do a worse job. My goal is not to have 1,000 people doing it perfectly across the world. My goal is to have 10,000 people doing it pretty close, with still those 1,000 that are doing it perfectly, right? I just want more people, not necessarily that I'm coaching, but that are doing this stuff, right? So if, for instance, if you say, hey, I want to be starting strength, but I have to do the sumo deadlift, or I have to squat high bar, cool. Hey, that's great. I want you to do that instead of, we're doing one-legged kettlebell
What's
RDLs.
the difference at that 90% to 100% in terms of your? So if I'm doing it 90% right.
Yeah, I don't
How
think
much
there's any
less is
difference.
that?
I don't think there's any
My
difference.
knees move a little bit.
I don't think there's any difference. I think that it's an irrational sort of desire to have people doing it perfectly, everybody doing it perfectly, or they don't do it at all. I think it's irrational, and I think you miss out on a large swath of the population that way too. So,
If you were to look at people that I train, there are people who I have trained for years that still have major form problems that I have to still tell them the same stuff through their warm-ups, and then they can kind of get it done. And then there are people who do it perfectly. But some of my highest performing lifters have form problems that get expressed quite obviously at 1RMs, and still work on it, but very few people lift perfectly. So to Jordan's point, like the difference between 90% and 100%, no one does it 100%. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I think if you start going down the line at 60%, now you're accepting squats well above parallel, hitched deadlifts or really rounded back stuff or whatever. I'm still cool with it. Because again, it's better than not training or doing silly stuff. I want to fix it, right? But this is just a bell curve. You're going to have people who are far end doing things awesome, right? You're going to have people who are train wrecks. But the main thing is, I want this bell curve to include 1 million people and not 1,000. I want everybody training. And the only way to make that happen is to accept that some people are going to screw it up and make you embarrassed that they're telling you they're doing your program, whatever. But ultimately, you just have to be psyched that they're training.
All right, last question. How strong can I get even though I'm a little older? This person asking was 47 years of age.
David Ricks, 57 years old, showed up, I think he was 55 at the time, showed up to 2013 Raw Nationals in Orlando, Florida.
To USAPL.
USAPL, so it's an IPF affiliate in the United States. So he's walking around in a singlet that's 10 years old. I was like, that's vintage. And his shoes had been out of production for 10 or 15 years, and he smelled like Bengay. Like he took a bath and just been, you're like, what the heck? He's a Masters competitor. Don't got to worry about him. He was the heaviest opening squat in my weight class by 10 kilos. He squatted above the world record at that time, so fast that the bar jumped off his back. Outbenched everyone by over 10 kilos, out deadlifted everybody, won going away at 55. Set the world record on a squat in our weight class at 330 something kilos at 57. Anyway, that being said, he's been strong forever, you know? And I think what you see is really strong people stay strong for a pretty long time, and there's an inflection point that either training becomes less important, an injury that won't go away happens, or you know, just the natural process of aging starts to go down. This is like your physical 401k, though. You get to keep making deposits.
Superannuation in Australia.
What's that?
Superannuation is called in Australia.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. And so, but you keep making deposits until you can no longer do that, and then you're just gonna, instead of starting strength, it's ending strength. You do your linear regression. Yeah, I think that the point, you know, the point where you can no longer add weight to the bar anymore is unknown. I mean, depends. Robin's 73.
And
Yeah.
there are a lot of older trainees that aren't necessarily trained and who haven't lifted through their lives that get quite strong and get stronger than what they were able to do at much younger ages. So it's not like, oh, it's just all downhill from here. You know, even at more advanced ages, people still can get quite strong.
I think it's all downhill for me.
Well, I agree.
I'm just chasing former glory.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've been telling you that for a couple of years now.
I peaked. No, you're just gonna, what's gonna happen is you're gonna end up requiring more input to get a smaller output.
Yeah.
So it's the easiest way to explain this is like anabolic resistance. The older you get, the more protein you need to get the same muscle protein synthesis response. Okay, it's dietary protein. And as you get older and older and older, and less male, right, then you need more and more protein. It's the same thing. You'll need more and more training, accumulated fatigue, right? Now that's relative, right, to make a smaller increase in your strength. And at some point,
It's just that
Yeah.
scaffold.
well, no, the stress accumulation phase is too long,
Yeah.
and your strength is decaying, and so you never end up going back higher than where you were before. So, yeah, strength acquisition and strength decay are happening at the same time. They're co-occurring, right? If you're productively strength training, the strength accumulation outweighs the strength decay,
Yep.
and at some point, due to aging, disease, priorities, whatever, strength decay is going to win just over time. It's like the Grim Reaper, the Gaines Reaper. That's the T-shirt. Oh,
Boy, that's going to be a powerful marketing thing. The Gaines Reaper, telling you you're going to die and you're going to get weaker and
ending strength.
ending strength,
Yeah, it's going to be Omega. That'll be the sign.
omega strength.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again for watching. Hit like if you dug the video. Comment below about what you want to see next. If you're on iTunes or if you're listening to this in podcast form, leave us a review. It helps us out more than you know. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.